Thank you, Madam Chairman, for the opportunity to provide remarks as the committee reviews the qualifications for two critical public health positions at HHS, the Assistant Secretary for Health and the Surgeon General. Dr. Levine, welcome, and Dr. Murthy, welcome as well. I also want to reinforce the Chairman's words that we all seek bipartisan votes on nominees. But that doesn't mean that answers to questions don't have to be sufficient. Today is your opportunity for that. Each of you have accepted a nomination at an important time when our country is facing one of the most challenging times in our history as we combat COVID-19. I have no doubt that should you be confirmed to these important leadership roles, the majority of your time will be focused on responding to the novel coronavirus and its impact. As Assistant Secretary of Health, Dr. Levine, you'd be in charge of a range of health issues, including human research protections and research integrity. As Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, you'd be responsible for providing Americans with the best scientific information and overseeing the Public Health Service Commission Corps, both of which continue to be critical to our pandemic response. The question before us today is, are both of you prepared and qualified to take on the roles and responsibilities required? In addition to the challenges that face us today with pandemic, this hearing will help answer those questions, but I'm very concerned about a nomination that's not before us today. In fact, it hasn't yet been made by the administration. The Assistant Secretary of Preparedness and Response, or ASPR for short, is the top advisor to the Secretary of HHS during public health emergencies. Congress created ASPR to serve in a dedicated role that coordinates among all the operating divisions and agencies within HHS, including the Assistant Secretary of Health and the Surgeon General. We have before us nominees for both Assistant Secretary for Health and Surgeon General, but not the coordinator, the ASPR. While the words of this administration claim urgency in their response to COVID-19, their actions or lack thereof speak otherwise. The law calls for strong leadership during pandemic health emergencies, but the nominations before us, while important, do not fill the role of the department charged with leading an emergency response. The administration claimed to be ready on day one, and the fact that a nominee for the ASPR hasn't yet been made and no meaningful effort at consultation with Congress about filling the position, quite frankly, raises serious questions. The ASPR is directed to communicate information from across the department to the Secretary, bringing a daily vigilance and constant urgency to the healthcare needs of the American people so that the Secretary can make informed decisions both in the midst of public health crisis and in times of preparation for the next threat we will face. We've been grappling with the novel coronavirus public health emergency for over a year. The new administration has had ample time to choose an individual for this critical role. So it's difficult to understand why the ASPR nominee is not at least sitting here with the two of you, if not before your hearing. Since it is our responsibilities as members of Congress to vet two nominees before us, I'll try to understand the roles each of you will play at HHS during the COVID-19 pandemic and the qualifications and experiences you have to do so. Now, Dr. Levine, the position of Assistant Secretary of Health evolved during the pandemic under the previous administration, playing an integral role in the COVID-19 response. Dr. Giroir, and we've all struggled with exactly how to pronounce his name, but Dr. Giroir worked with NIH and BARDA as they partnered with innovators to develop and scale up testing technologies, helped to address shortages of testing supplies, and worked with states to meet its testing needs. Dr. Levine, you've been on the front line of the COVID-19 response in your home state of Pennsylvania, which faced great challenges with testing capacity early in the pandemic and vaccine rollout to this day. The state public health lab was only able to perform 6 tests per day in March of last year. 6. Severely limiting the public health response that relied on identifying where the state virus was spreading. Along with testing challenges from last spring, your state failed to adequately protect nursing home residents from the virus and is making unacceptable mistakes in the vaccine distribution process. Pennsylvania ranks as one of the most dangerous states for long-term care residents battling COVID-19. 52% of Pennsylvania's COVID-19 deaths came from nursing homes, and 3 in 10 of the deadliest facilities in the country were in Pennsylvania. Your state came in 46 in the country in its effort to put safeguards in place that manage the spread of infections in these settings, with only 16% of the state's nursing homes receiving infection control inspections that could have saved residents from the spread of COVID-19. While you stated that you relied on federal guidance for the nursing home care during the pandemic, the tragic high mortality rate in your state's nursing homes shows that more was needed but wasn't provided. In my state of North Carolina, our health secretary also relied on federal guidance for nursing homes in long-term care settings. In North Carolina, our nursing home mortality rate, while still high, accounts for 36% of the deaths in our state. This discrepancy clearly shows that hiding behind federal guidance is no excuse for taking action to protect our most vulnerable. I look forward to understanding exactly why your decisions, when relying on the same federal guidelines as my state, resulted in a different outcome for Pennsylvania's seniors. In regards to vaccine rollout, reports from your state recently indicated that tens of thousands of Pennsylvania residents mistakenly received the dedicated second dose of Moderna vaccine, meaning second dose that was reserved for those who had had a first dose, and the second dose went to newly vaccinated people. While you may not have been in office during the last few weeks of the challenges facing your state, you were serving as the state's health secretary during the development and submission of its COVID-19 vaccine plan last October. And I might note that yesterday in the Help Committee, Senator Marshall put into the record, I believe, 50 state plans that had been submitted. And I think it's important that we understand that you cannot separate your role from the performance of your agency a matter of weeks after your departure. So I hope you will take those questions on seriously. At each step, testing, treatment, and now vaccination, your state's response has fallen short. As the state's health secretary, this track record reflects on your ability to meet the challenges that would come across your desk immediately should you be confirmed. I'm sure we will find similar problems in all 50 states, and similar blame could be leveled on Congress. But you're the nominee, and I hope you will address those questions as best you can. Dr. Murthy, earlier this week, you and I had an opportunity to discuss a range of issues, and I'm thankful for that time, as I did with Dr. Levine, that the Surgeon General will face in this administration, starting with the response to COVID. You've already served once as the nation's doctor, and my friend from Kentucky often tells us in the conference, not much education comes out of the second kick of a mule. So I hope to learn more about why you want to do this again. Should you be confirmed, the American people will be placing their trust in you to communicate without political preference or pressure the best ways to keep their families safe during the crisis. I worry about your ability to separate political influence from your ability to communicate healthcare decisions. In fact, you spoke at the Democrat National Convention, a wholly political event, just a few months ago. As a co-chair of the transition team's coronavirus task force, you said that the president's goal of 100 million vaccinations by 100 days was doable, lowering expectations for an accomplishment well within our reach today. Before President Biden took office, our country was already vaccinating 900,000 people a day and had administered over 20 million shots. I'm in politics, so I know lots of people try to lower expectations in order to look like they're accomplishing something when they're simply showing up. But the Surgeon General has to be trusted for the facts. 100 million people in 100 days isn't a stretch goal. And you shouldn't be afraid to stand up to the political staff who want you to lower the expectations so the administration can easily reach them. The American people deserve a Surgeon General who will separate fact from fiction and level with us on the science. Madam Chairman, in conclusion, Dr. Levine and Dr. Murthy, the actions and positions that they've taken prior to your nomination in the process leave me to have some concerns. I hope that you'll use today's hearing to address those concerns to earn my support. The position of Assistant Secretary of Health and Surgeon General are important and must be filled. But it is frustrating that the administration chose to prioritize the nomination of candidates for these positions, as important as they are, instead of the nomination of the leader for federal government's response to pandemics that is required by law. Strong leadership will continue to be absolutely necessary throughout this phase of pandemic response. And I'll use my time today to get an answer to the questions, or the question, who's in charge? Chairman Murray, Dr. Levine's challenges in Pennsylvania to bring early adequate testing and to keep nursing home residents safe, and Dr. Murthy's inability to separate politics from good public health policy are especially concerning when the role of ASPR still stands vacant. I look forward to hearing their testimony today, their plans to navigate a response at HHS without a Senate-confirmed ASPR to provide the direction these two offices need during a challenging time. I thank both of our nominees for being here today. I yield back to the chair.